Now we are going to have a presentation remotely from Liam Quin, who worked with the W3C XML group for nearly 2 decades and is here on World Digital Preservation Day to remind us of the need to document our code and provide useful instructions for the future. Please welcome Liam.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me? All right, let's see if I can give you, I do have a few slides. So what I'm planning to do, after saying hello and introducing myself, is to talk for just about 10 minutes with slides, a couple of minutes without slides, and then ask for questions and audience participation, because I think what I'm trying to do today is raise awareness and ask questions. What am I raising questions about? Well, with luck, I can do this.
I can see it.
Thank you. Okay, at least one person can see the slide. All right. Maybe the room's muted. All right. It's a pretentious sounding title, but you have to have pretentious sounding titles for academic conferences with really amazing people in them, right? So, my name's Liam Quin. I'm with Delightful Computing, where we also offer training. This is a photograph from one of our training sessions. And you've probably seen in the program, there's an abstract, which says that the document world is experiencing an ice age, a descent into tribalism and chaos as the ideas behind declarative markup are forgotten. And a leap has been made from what you see as all you get word processors. That's a little bit snarky, but I am a bit snarky. And even worse, page layout software that we had before, into the now ubiquitous README.md markdown formats, in which what you see is less than what you get and not at all what you need. In 20 years, 10 years, next week sometime, will the ideas behind declarative markup all be forgotten? And if so, who will keep the iron wheels turning in the mineshafts of technology? So what must we, that's you in this room as well as me, what must we record, write down, vlog, so that people who come after us can keep the system working, let alone make new systems? That, in a way, is all I'm going to say, but there's more to it than that. So I'll say it again a little bit more slowly. I said the document world, because although XML and declarative markup are used for computer-to-computer messages, my primary concern today is with the document world. It's with all of that. But we're experiencing a kind of ice age. Descent into tribalism and chaos, it feels. There's people who say things like, oh no, we don't do that XML stuff. We do nice modern HTML. Never mind history and roots. It's about the we, right? My mouse is faulty over there. Sorry. That's better. It feels like web developers flip from fad to fad, like moths in a lighting shop. Whatever is newest. There was a point at which jQuery was used on over 80% of websites. And then they started figuring out that jQuery wasn't perfect. It was quite a big download and it slowed down your website. And most people were using 1% of jQuery or less. They just moved from, so they abandoned that fad and moved to a new fad. Most recently, we've seen Google with the Chrome browser publish an intent to remove XSLT from the browser. And someone proposed that W3C should obsolete the XSLT recommendations on the grounds that no one used them and they weren't very important to the web, to the tribe. And that, of course, matters to us. So we're experiencing an ice age, a descent into tribalism and chaos as the ideas behind declarative markup are forgotten. And it feels like a giant leap backwards from, as I wrote in the abstract, what you see is all you get word processors. They're supposed to be what you see as what you get. But a number of people have always emphasized the all. It's true that if you use styles very rigidly, you can get more, but very few people do. It's hard to enforce. It can be enforced, but it usually isn't. And worse, page layout software, which tends to be anathema to accessibility and reformatting, so reflowing. So if you want to have, you publish a PDF or an image with words in, and someone trying to read it on a phone or a mobile device has to scroll around and curse. And we've moved forward and backwards at the same time. We've moved into Markdown. And if you've ever worked with Markdown documents, you know that what you see is less than what you get. There's no semantics there at all, really. It's just italic and bold and bullet list. And it's not at all what you typically need. There is really no standard Markdown inline markup. So the ideas that we were promoting have become not current. And what that means is that in 20 years from now, and 10 years, maybe next week sometime, we have to ask, will the ideas behind declarative markup be forgotten? We spent so much effort trying to teach people, and they said, no, we're not really interested. But there's so much that relies on this technology, these ideas. And who will keep those wheels turning in the mineshafts of technology? There's a famous XKCD cartoon about this, with the entire technological world sitting on one tiny cube of one piece of software, which is actually quite realistic. Recently, we heard of libxml no longer having a maintainer. A volunteer, unpaid, has stepped in to fill that goal, but to volunteer. And how long before that person's burned out by all the AI bounty hunters? I get contacted by AI bounty hunters for my website with spurious security issues. Nick, who was maintaining libxml and libxslt, said the vast majority of bug reports opened were from AIs seeking bounties. The bounty problem has ended up causing more damage than it's solved, it seems. So when the maintainer's gone, what do we do? What do we record? What do we write down or make videos about? So that people who come after us can keep the system working, let alone make new systems. And there are new systems being made. The world is not dead. It's not completely frozen. And I don't think we're beyond redemption, but I do think we're under attack. And I think we have to, and I think a lot of people are retiring, leaving, dying, whatever, and or moving to other work. And it means we're in a situation where someone wanting to maintain an XSLT system comes along and says, well, I'll rewrite this. We don't really need an XML parser. We'll rewrite this in Python or JavaScript and JSON or something. And that's okay if it does the work and they've got people to maintain it. it's not so good if it's really not the best for what they need. So in theory, that's my first 10 minutes, but I didn't time it. So here's where I'm going. Where were we a decade or two ago? Where are we now? Where are we going? What must we do? And then some discussion. 30 years ago, we were too expensive. There were huge custom document analysis projects for governments and big firms. There were custom DTDs, or tag sets, as some people call them, or vocabularies. And some of those are really great, and many of them are still used, and they took years and years to develop, or person years to develop. There was really good and high local semantics. So within the organizations, they were and are very useful. Often there was poor interchange. If you receive something in someone else's really complicated vocabulary, and if you're lucky, you get a DTD or a schema, it hasn't actually necessarily helped you. It might have helped you. It's the basis for something that could have helped you, but it might not. And this was work that large companies and government could do. Today, we have a few major vocabularies. We have, DocBook, DITA, JATS, the aircraft family, a few more industry-specific ones, a few cross-industry. We have more reliance, I think, on custom metadata inside interchangeable formats. JATS is great for allowing metadata. We see Onyx, we see embedded JSON LD, which, given a context, is okay. We're seeing, it feels to me that very new XML systems, I don't mean here an XML editor or single program, I mean an entire workflow, that much fewer new XML systems are installed, and we're retiring. Well, I don't have retiring in sight, but that's a matter. I mean, we love it. I love the work. What happened 20 years ago was that smart teenagers' cool hobby was working on open source. It's changed. Today, it's doom scrolling truth social, which is neither of those two things. The XML world, for a while, it was quite diverse, and I really liked that. It seems to have become less diverse. It may just be the environment I'm in. I don't know. It may be sample bias. I don't know. But we're all still needed. We're going. So what to do? So here are some ideas where we can do. One is outreach, and I know a number of us have got together on a Discord that Beth and Toby Walsh originally set up, I think, with a couple of other people to discuss how to do outreach to younger people. And with tiny first steps are beginning to be seen. I made a tag called Markup Mondays and have been trying to post every Monday. I was ill this Monday, but trying to post every Monday just something about markup and XML to increase visibility. And I found when I did it, there were quite a lot of people who liked the posts and who commented, and some discussion happened on various different formats. So there's people out there who are interested and just slightly within reach. And if we can reach out to them, then they have people who are slightly within reach. some of you may have seen the pumpkin. I should have added it to these slides. We made pumpkins for Halloween, my partner and I did one that said XML and kind of flickered at me. I posted it on social media saying this will scare the browser developers. It's a very scary pumpkin. It says XML on it. The browser, one of the browser developers replied and said, said, "Oh yeah, that'll work." It was the person who made Safari. So, so there's people out there who we can contact. Obviously, we have to document how projects work and how to do things. And one of the things you have to do is make it easier to maintain a project than it is to replace it. And that's something that in the software world, we've always collectively been really bad at. It is often easier to replace a project than to repair it, because there's lots of complicated components that fit together in fragile and undocumented ways. And also, because tearing down and rebuilding is always more attractive than mending. Talk to the contractor who used to come in and help us, and handyman, and he was, looking forward to demolishing our kitchen with a lot more enthusiasm than to building a new kitchen. We could see where that could lead if we weren't careful. And real projects. XML has been part of infrastructure. It's often been invisible. I'm sure there are people here, judging by the participant list, who remember Michael Sperber McQueen's galvanizing talk about tunnels under Chicago and hidden infrastructure. And it's good and bad, because when you work on hidden things, no one knows you're doing it. So without the visibility, people don't know that XML is around, and in fact, it's everywhere. It's in the air. It's in the water. It's like all friendly tardigrades or something. So, what can we do? I've mentioned Markup Monday and the blog about why declarative markup is useful and what it is. Very, very basics. Come and join us. There's nothing special about Discord. We came there because there's an xml.com Slack, but the problem is stuff gets lost after 90 days. Whereas in the Discord, you can scroll back, as far as I can tell, indefinitely. It's still not as open as I would like it to be, but so it's really, I'm trying to promote it for this single discussion. We don't have an XML dev anymore, unfortunately, and attempts to revive that have met with various kinds of opposition and failure from the people who originally ran it to bring it back. But we do have the Discord. Maybe I'm dating myself, but I would write it down on the wall just for you. I won't try and sing it because it got stuck in my head for weeks after I wrote these slides. Years, decades. Document what we do. Make sure that every transformation, every xproc file, every script, every CSS file says at the beginning of it what it's for, what it needs, succinctly and plainly. Make sure there's clear instructions on how to run things. I always used to make a make file in a project folder. A former colleague and great friend, dear Kate Hamilton, used to make a runme.sh file on Unix systems. And if you see something called runme in a directory, the first thing you do is run it as the system's administrator. No, the first thing you do is you look at it, and it gives you maybe an idea as to what's supposed to happen. So make things really obvious. Something I have started doing recently is when I've got a sequence of scripts that I have to run, I make each one tell me what to do next. That's about discoverability. So run such and such a script if you need it, that kind of thing. And of course include tests. Years ago, when I made the framework for fromallbooks.org, to give an example that's client neutral, there's a little variable that you can change to switch to a different XSLT engine or a different XQuery engine, and it uses base X for the XQuery engine, and that's on the live site. And if you switch it, the live site switches to a different XQuery engine. If you can make someone on the chat asks, where can I find an invitation link to the Discord? I don't have one with me. I'm hoping someone else will be able to post one to the chat, because I can't get one from the Discord, unfortunately. It's moderated, which is not a bad idea. I mean, the conversation isn't moderated, the joining is. All right, Norm says he's looking for it. If you have it, it's at the top left under the name of the server. All right. So explore being able to swap components, because in the future there might be some reason that you need to do that. There is an invite to the Discord in the chat. Thank you, Norm. And I have to go forward on both. All right. That's kind of all that I wanted to say, and I took longer to say it than I had planned to, but maybe that was a good idea. I'm feeling a bit hesitant today. So what I'm going to do, I will give you my last slide, just because it's got my name on it, in case anyone doesn't know. And something from an 1890s. There was an 1890s fad of the Gnomes books, the Brownies books. They were called Brownies books, which I don't actually advise you going out to look for, because by today's standards, they are horribly racist and horribly nationalistic. But they've got these wonderful cartoons and illustrations in them, so you just kind of have to ignore all the all the writing and replace it with your company name, and you're good. All right. Anyway, I'm going to say so. I would like to just ask for ideas. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. At the moment, I can't remember the name of the person who wrote the. It was an American writer, Tom, and I can't remember who it was. What I'd like to do is invite discussion. Thank you for listening.
Hey, Liam, it's Ken Holman. How are you?
Hello, Ken. How are you? Good, thank you.
One of the issues about sharing is, of course, proprietary information and proprietary transforms. And a lot of the wealth and success of using XML is caught up in solutions that can't really be shared. So I worry. I think it's an ideal that you have that would be wonderful to be followed. But I think a lot of the richness of the success of XML is caught up behind the scenes.
I think that's absolutely true. Having said that, very often it's easy to get permission to mention that XML technologies are used in a particular project elsewhere.
Yeah.
And just doing that is a huge thing. Obviously, you can't release the actual XSLT or XQuery or database layout or any of it, or the pipeline or pipelines that are used. But just being able to say this project used declarative markup in the input and very successful and is very successful and has been used is great.
Well, watch this space. I've got the second
Yeah.
last tomorrow afternoon, and I have reduced a corporate solution into a simplified open source GitHub project that follows the same principles, but without exposing any of the proprietary code.
Great. So that I think Kim brings up something that I think we can do, and I think is useful to say, is to talk about or mention successful projects, even if the details can't be shared, as well as, of course, if possible, making sure that they're written in a way that people will be able to maintain into the future. Alan Painter asks a question, saying that one of the XML founders decided that Markdown was just as usable as XML, and that the notion of separation of format and semantics has been entirely forgotten. And do I think this is widespread? I do think it's widespread, but I think it's widespread under particular people in particular environments, because one of the things that's happened, a lot of documentation is now written by developers in small projects, and web technologies. Oh, for a second I saw the room. That was great. And Markdown is about the developer is in control. JSON is about the developer is in control. And as far as the developer is concerned, if the software changes, then they need to change the documentation. There is no longevity as part of that. They're not in the same world. I remember when the Balasage held a symposium, and we had a Google person, Dominic, who was working on web components, and really with things with long-term lifetimes, sometimes as long documents with long lifetimes, sometimes as long as several minutes. And up got Jim Mason, who talked about documentation requirements of nuclear storage facilities, and they have a minimum 100 years requirement. But really, that's crazy. It ought to be 10,000 years. There's actually been a documentary about the nuclear storage facility where he was working, and the cracks in the lining and the fact that it's right near a huge river that millions of people depend on. And this was obviously a culture shock for the web developer. It's like, wow, people who aren't even alive today might need to understand this document. And Tom says Markdown maybe has been successful because it's easy to author, not because it's easy to read or process. And I think that's true. That's why its kind of name is, it's an easier version. But the trouble is, what you end up with is something simpler. And it can be a real thing with XML. It can be harder. A lot of that depends on your project workflow and where the authoring happens and how much the authors care about the documents, because our success case for documents is clearly either where you have large numbers of documents that you're processing with similar structure, or where you have fewer documents that you maintain over a long time and do a lot of work with. And in both cases, what's in common is the authors care about them.
Stop at this point to continue on with our XSLT XPath X query discussion for the afternoon. The conversation can continue online because it is a very interesting topic that we all need to address for the future. So thank you, Liam.